European Commission, DG Regio, Program Manager.
Okay. Sit down. Dear Minister, dear conference participants, let me first introduce myself briefly. My name is Regina Huber, as we said. I'm the responsible desk officer in the European Commission for the Estonia-Latvia program, and this means that I handle most of the administrative work on the Commission side for this program. And I basically ensure the link between the colleagues on the ground, the managing authority, the technical secretariat, the monitoring committee, and the European Commission. And you will see in the program that my contribution to this conference is under the heading Future Perspectives of Cross-Border Cooperation. But let me first say a few words as well about the European Cooperation Day, or rather the European Cooperation Week, as it is in fact. And this week is in fact a very special week. For the first time ever, we celebrate territorial cooperation in the European Union. Amid the intense preparations for the next programming period, let's take some time today to step back and reflect on what cooperation means and what we have achieved. We have never done this before on the scale we are doing it now. We are doing it now on our first official cooperation day. And there are over 200 events taking place throughout this week all across the EU and the neighboring countries. More than 80% of cooperation programs are joining these celebrations this year, and they organize all kinds of events, from conferences to bike tours, photo competitions, and so on. These events are showing the citizens how important it is that we all work together, and that this is what European integration is all about, actually. So I am pleased that the Estonia-Latvia program and the Estonia-Latvia-Russia program have together joined this initiative, and I am pleased to be here in this program area. I'm looking forward to hearing about the achievements and experiences of the past few years and your ideas and plans for the future. So what has cooperation actually achieved so far, and what are we celebrating? There are currently 93 cooperation programs implemented across the Union. Most of them are dedicated to cross-border cooperation on internal EU borders, like the Estonia-Latvia program, but also on borders with candidates and potential candidates, and on neighborhood borders, like the Estonia-Latvia-Russia program. Other programs operate on a transnational basis. They are tackling issues across larger zones which present common features. They share common opportunities or tackle common challenges, like the Baltic Sea region program, which some of you work with, and most of you certainly know. A few programs operate at European Union level. They are searching for excellence and good practice in cooperation, exchanges of experience in areas like urban development or spatial planning. Together, these programs finance thousands of projects, each of which is a truly European project. Not only because it is financed by European money, but because it brings together partners from different countries directly building Europe in this way. So what characterizes the cooperation projects is that they bring people together from sometimes very different horizons. They help build trust, and they foster mutual understanding. These are cornerstones for any long-term partnership, and they are essential ingredients for the European integration. So in the name of the Commission, I want to take this opportunity to thank all those involved in cooperation for their dedication, their open minds, and their commitment to the European ideal. We often hear that cooperation projects and programs are overly complex, and yet participation in the programs does not falter. They are popular, and there is still the same enthusiasm as there has always been. complexity, whether real or perceived, does not deter those who see the benefits of territorial cooperation. So let's now have a brief look to the future of the programs. And actually, in this part of my presentation, I will concentrate on cooperation as part of cohesion policy. As most of you know, the Commission presented proposals for the cohesion policy regulations for 2014-2020 programming period last year in October. The discussions on these proposals are ongoing between the Member States in the Council and in the European Parliament. So the European Commission, Council and Parliament are working hard to further improve the legislative framework for regional policy, including the territorial cooperation. But we need to keep in mind that the cohesion policy regulations are obviously closely linked to the outcome of the ongoing negotiations on the multi-annual financial framework for 2014-2020. The current timetable for the legislative process is roughly as follows. As regards the multi-annual financial framework, the Cypriot EU presidency aims for a decision before the end of the year. There will be a European summit on this topic in November, and let's hope that the heads of state will come to an agreement at this summit already. Then during autumn, the negotiations between the three institutions on the regulation texts will go on in parallel to the negotiations of the finances. And then once the multi-annual financial framework is decided, the regulation text can be finalized, and we expect this final work to be done in spring and summer of next year. Then the contents of the Commission proposals of October of last year, they have been presented at quite many events, and I think many of you are quite familiar with what was proposed. So I would therefore just like to briefly recall the main elements, and I will not go into a lot of technical details here because many of these details are still under negotiations, I will just cover the main points. So this package we are talking about consists of the following elements. There's a common provisions regulation, which is the biggest block in the package. It covers cohesion policy as well as rural development policy and the maritime and fisheries policies. Then we have fund-specific regulations for the ERDF, the Regional Development Fund, the European Social Fund, and the Cohesion Fund. And then we have a new element in this package, that's a specific regulation for European territorial cooperation. And this new regulation is meant to take better into account the special nature of the cooperation programs, and it is meant to provide specific provisions for ETC where it is necessary, because sometimes in the past ETC was not covered so well in the regulations. Okay. Then the proposals of the Commission, they build very much on consistency and experience of the current and past programming periods. So we keep the three strands of cooperation, the cross-border, transnational, and interregional. For the geographical coverage, we keep the same approach based on the NUTS 3 regions for cross-border cooperation and NUTS 2 for the transnational. And many of the other core elements, they remain unchanged as well. Then a basic element of the proposals is that the EU 2020 strategy, which aims for smart, inclusive, and sustainable growth, is the main guiding line for all sectors of cohesion policy, including cooperation for the period 2014-2020. The new regulations require concentration on a limited number of thematic objectives and investment priorities, which are linked to the EU 2020 objectives, and each program will be free to choose the best mix of this list of objectives. Then, one important point is that the programs will need to be more strategic. That means that this will be ensured through the link to EU 2020, but also that the programs will have to pay more attention to the strategy when they are drafting the program text. Then my last point on the content of the proposals is that we have made a number of suggestions for simplification, for monitoring, reporting, eligibility rules, and so on. But as in particular here, there are many points which are still unclear and still being discussed with Parliament and Council. I will not talk about the details here, actually. Then a substantial increase in funding for cooperation to 11.7 billion euro for the 3 strands has been proposed, and it is supported by Parliament. This is a clear recognition of the importance and added value of cooperation. However, in the context of the current financial and economic crisis, the budget constraints and austerity measures, we can't predict at this stage what the final outcome of the budget negotiations will be, unfortunately. What is clear is that we are more than ever obliged to scrutinize our expenditure. We need to ensure that governments understand that cooperation is not a luxury item, but it is one of the essential basics of regional policy, even if small in financial terms compared to the overall amounts of cohesion policy spending. So we must ensure more than ever that all regional policy funding, including cooperation funding, is used effectively and efficiently. And we will do this in the future by putting greater emphasis on defining and monitoring results. The future cooperation programs will have to step up a gear when it comes to effectiveness and results. So, to end my presentation, I would like to list just a few questions which will need to be discussed when we develop the new programs. So this would be, for example, a question whether our program strategy is coherent and relevant for the challenges we face in the border area. How can we better ensure that projects have a lasting impact? Where can we be more efficient in decision-making and in administration? And where can we reduce the administrative burden for the project partners so they can focus to a maximum on the actual project work? How can we motivate new project partners to participate in cooperation projects? And then, do we need to be more top-down when it comes to project generation? Does it make sense to rely only on open calls? And how can we find the right mix between larger strategic projects and smaller grassroots level projects? How can we ensure the quality of the projects? So I'm optimistic that our conference today will help to find answers to these and many other questions. The current programming period is the first full programming period for both programs, Estonia-Latvia and Estonia-Latvia Russia. And a lot of valuable experience has been gained over the past few years, positive as well as negative. And many of you are directly involved in the management of programs or in the implementation of projects. So your contributions today will be of great value for the next generation of the cooperation programs. And be assured that the European Commission will work closely with each program to ensure that these new programs are developed and implemented in a spirit of partnership, because this is one of the basic things about cooperation. It's the partnership on all levels. So once again, I would like to say thank you to everybody who's involved in organizing and hosting this conference. I would also like to thank Interact for their initiative and for their efforts to make this European Cooperation Day a success. So let's hope that this Cooperation Day is only the first of a long series of European events to ensure that territorial cooperation gets the recognition it really deserves. Thank you for your attention.